Okay, the point of this video is to walk you through plate 110, which are the arteries of the lower limb, the leg. So this plate, much like the arm, I believe the arm was, I could be wrong about that, was divided into an anterior view and a posterior view. So here we're looking at the anterior view, and we can tell that. So if you got kind of confused, if you're given both diagrams, find the inguinal ligament that we have here. You can kind of tell that, the coxa is behind. If it's the leg over here, then obviously patella here is in front. Also, we're going to notice that down in the foot, the vessels look slightly different. So if this is the dorsum view or the dorsal view, remember the top of the foot is dorsal. And then I'm going to switch over here to the back of the foot and the back of the leg. So now you can actually tell. So here's the coxa that's kind of back behind facing us. Also, you can tell it's the back of the knee. There's no patella. And then the bottom of the foot, we actually have, as the blood vessel, and this is it's called the posterior tibial, comes down and it branches off into two. So we have blood vessels that are on the bottom of the foot and the top of the foot. So just be careful when we're looking at things. So I'm going to switch over to the anterior view. So this is the right side of your foot. And when you do color, you will want to color the left and the right because the same blood vessels, just a few of them you can see on the back that you can't see on the front and vice versa. So I'm going to kind of work in descending view here. And so I'm actually going to switch to this, learn this new little trick here with kind of like a spotlight. So right here, we have the abdominal aorta, which is going to branch off into the two, and we saw these before, into the two common iliacs. Remember, common just means that it's going to split off pretty quickly. It's a little bit longer than trunk. And so here we're going to have, it's going to extend down the leg, this kind of orange goldish color here. This is the external iliac, and then it was going to break onto the internal iliac. Now that internal iliac will then actually change into what we call the obturator, which makes a lot of sense. If you remember, this opening through the pelvis was the obturator foramen, so it's the obturator artery. Also branching off of this internal iliac are the superior and inferior gluteals. And we'll see those a little bit better in the back. In fact, let me also grab. I'm going to try to grab. It didn't work the way I thought it was going to work. Grab some red here. Let me turn off that highlighter, actually. Oops, that's not turning off the highlighter. That's not turning off the highlighter. There we go. Okay, so let me grab a little bit of a pen tool here. So this blood vessel that we have right here, this is superior iliac, or excuse me, superior gluteal, and then inferior gluteal. It's this green color. I'll actually jump over here just real quickly. Well, no, I won't, because I can't do that with my pen tool. Okay, so let me back up here a little bit. So abdominal aorta, common iliac, internal iliac, external iliac. The internal iliac will go into the obturator through the obturator foramen. The internal iliac also branches off into the superior and inferior gluteals. Those are feeding your gluteal muscles and other things that you have in the backside. But that's the main things. Remember, we're mostly feeding muscles at this point. Eventually all of this has to get to the, you do have to get some to your skin. Excuse my cat there. I'm going to go ahead and pause for just a moment. Okay, let's continue on. We left off here, and I'm going to work down the leg, and we've got everything that's off of that internal iliac. So we had the external iliac. That's going to turn into the femoral artery. Femoral artery is a big, long artery. This is really analogous to the brachial that was in the arm, and you do start seeing some similarities between the two. And in fact, I may try to pull a picture that kind of shows both of those. Okay, so branching off of the femoral, you have first branching down here. This is going to be the profunda femoris. Remember we had the profunda brachii? Well, this is the analogous to that. Then it has a bunch of perforating branches. Now this bottom, as it turns out, isn't really, I think your book actually labels this entire thing. So imagine this going back behind. This still continues to be that Profunda Femoris, the very end when they don't call a perforating branch. So here it shows one, so there'd be, again, there's a dotted line back behind here, dotted line back here, dotted line back here. All of those are really feeding the bone here. Those are also feeding a lot of these muscles we have around here, because remember, there's lots and lots of muscles here in the quadricep region and the hamstring region. Okay, branching off of that Profunda Femoris, you're going to have what's called the lateral circumflex branch and the medial circumflex branch. So this green is the medial circumflex, and then this is the lateral circumflex. Now, it's going to kind of follow back behind here, and again, we had these also in the arm. We had a circumflex there as well. Now, branching off of the lateral circumflex is the descending branch of the lateral circumflex. And so that one's going to be a little bit of a long name. So really, this one you really do want to name, this blood vessel coming down along here, you do want to name it the descending branch of the lateral circumflex. And if you put femoral in there, that's fine as well. But as long as you kind of understand to me, you can show to me that it is coming off of that lateral branch when it moves down. Okay, so I think I've got everything that we have up here. Then we actually start seeing, so you can see in this view, this blood vessel that starts the femoris breaks what's called the popliteal. And if you remember, that was the popliteal region, was the area behind your knee. So it does start just before it branches off to go behind the knee, the popliteal. And we also have this branch that comes off in the arm. Remember, we had that superior and inferior collaterals. Well, we don't have all that network. We don't worry about that with the foot or the leg. We're just going to call these the genicular. And in your book, I believe actually your labels it as genicular anastomosis. I'm okay with you just doing genicular. So if you've done the purpose games, you're going to see the term genicular. That's all the blood vessels that actually are associated with around the knee. The knee is surrounded in a whole bunch of network of blood vessels. So let me now jump over to the lower leg here, so we can see coming down would have been that femoral. Here's that profunda femoral. Then the genicular actually starts here, and it's this entire network. In fact, I missed a little bit because actually here's a little more of it. And these do actually have some names. I mean, you look in your text, there are some labels of those. We will not do those. Just know this whole network around the knee is the genicular. Then we have a blood vessel, and this actually would have branched off in the back of the knee. We'll see that better on the back, but that popliteal branches off. And so here we have what's called the anterior tibial. The anterior tibial, which makes a lot of sense because it's in the front of the tibia. And we had the anterior tibial muscle, if you recall that, so that should at least look familiar to you. Okay, then about your ankle, we're going to branch this off. And now remember, this is the dorsal. So we're on the dorsal side. So this first part, right along kind of the top of your foot, running right along your, we had all the ankle bones that we had here. So this is what's called the dorsal pedis, the dorsal foot, pedis, foot. Makes a lot of sense. Then this blood vessel that runs across that kind of connects right at the base of all your toes is the arcuate, or arcuate is how I pronounce that. Then we've got all of these dorsal metatarsals. So you're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of those dorsal metatarsals. Then you have dorsal digital, all of the toes. Okay? So that's the front of the leg. That's the front of the leg. And so if you want to go back and see this again, you're welcome to. So I'm going to move on to the back of the leg. And we're going to see a lot of repeats here. There are only a couple of new ones. Well, okay, maybe all 5. But they're logically named. Okay, so remember we talked about those gluteal muscles, or gluteal arteries. So here is the superior gluteal. Then down here, we have the purple here is the inferior gluteal. Now the inferior gluteal actually is going to kind of connect, and we're going to have, these are those two circumflex. So we're going to have the medial circumflex, and then over here we have the lateral circumflex. Next, we are going to have, let's continue down here with the femoral. I think they're actually in different colors than the last text was in, which is okay. So the femoral we have here, the femoral was going to turn into the popliteal. Then the popliteal, actually, this is where the genicular starts. That genicular actually starts pretty high in the leg. So that's probably maybe where you get the trickiest part. But if you can kind of compare all your diagrams, you should be okay. Then we had over here, this was that descending branch of the lateral circumflex. So someplace up here, there'd be, I kind of do the dotted line. It was going to kind of connect in the front of the leg. So this is that descending branch of the lateral circumflex. Here we have that profunda femoris again. It's going to be then having these perforating branches. So again, here we have the profunda femoris with all of its perforating branches. It's okay, you don't need to say the perforating branches of the profunda femoris. Technically, that probably is how they were named. I think all of the purpose games and the Quizlet and things that I've done, I've not gone to that extent. So either way is okay with me. Okay, let's jump over to the back of the leg. And so again, here we have the femoral coming down. Here's starts the genicular, and here's genicular, here's genicular, here's genicular. And even the genicular reconnects. Because remember, it really is analogous to the front of to the arm, and we had all those recurrents that were occurring, but just put together a little differently in the leg. Then branch, we have that popliteal, which is the femoral branches off to that. Then I had mentioned it's going to branch off several times. The brown one that we see here, this is the one that actually goes back over to the front of the leg. So this is that anterior tibial. Then we're going to have this blue, which is the posterior tibial. It runs along the back of the tibial. Then we have, and this maybe is slightly confusing, and maybe it looks a little different in real life. They call it the fibular. The fibia is all the way over here. It's not exactly running on top of that, but I guess the name works just fine. So we have the fibular. Then if we follow the descending tibial down, it's going to branch off into the medial. Now we're on the bottom of the foot here. This is plantar. So we have the medial plantar and the lateral plantar. Those are along the kind of the arch of your foot, along the metatarsals. Then we're going to have the plantar metatarsals. Then we have the plantar digital. And I think that runs through things. So let me kind of review the bottom of the leg again. So remember, we have the popliteal coming down. It branches off the anterior tibial, the posterior tibial. The posterior tibial branching off of that will be the fibular, and it kind of continues down and obviously gets smaller and smaller. Now, when we get down to the foot, we don't just have that one. We have the dorsal pedis. So here we're going to have the plantar medial and the plantar lateral. Excuse me. So this side is the medial side, and over here is the lateral side. I think I actually skipped over this blood vessel real quickly. And here we have what's called the plantar arch. It isn't called the arcuate. If you look at the word arcuate, that kind of is like arch. And I think we had in the hand, we had a similar thing with a deep palmar arch and a superficial palmar arch. So this is kind of that analogous thing here. So we have that plantar arch, then we had the plantar metatarsals and plantar digital. Hopefully that's been helpful, and you'll find the leg probably not quite as difficult as the arm, and all of you pretty well succeeded in the arm, so I'm thinking great things for these. So hopefully this has been helpful.